Welcome to the Rewire for Birth podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Cindy. I'm a naturopathic doctor and birth guardian, and I couldn't be more thrilled to have you here. This podcast is all about rewiring the way we think about pregnancy, birth, and postpartum by offering a holistic perspective that empowers you to embrace your journey with confidence and strength. Each week, I'll bring you expert insights, valuable advice, and inspiring stories to help you feel prepared and empowered. We'll dive deep into the transformative experience of bringing new life into the world and explore ways to make your birthing journey truly beautiful.
Please remember that although Cindy is a naturopathic doctor, she is not your naturopathic doctor. This information is made available to you for educational and informational purposes only and should never be used as a substitute for medical advice. Please see rewireforbirth.com/disclaimer for details.
Today on the podcast, I'm joined by two incredible women who are each in their own way devoted to awakening the body's innate capacity to heal and thrive. Michale brings over 30 years of experience in integrative health. As a nurse practicing from a holistic and global perspective, she helped create one of the country's first integrative tongue-tie clinics more than a decade ago. Her work centers around a powerful principle. From our very first breath to our last, we are constantly creating, utilizing, and maintaining space within the body. Michale is a passionate educator who lectures and teaches nationally and internationally on craniofacial growth and development and anticipatory growth guidance. She has created training programs for both healthcare practitioners and parents and mentors those who feel called to do their own inner work, what she calls healing the healer. She believes the future of medicine lies with practitioners who are rebuilding wisdom systems essential for our survival and flourishing as humans. We also have Dr. Molly Peralta, a chiropractor, birth keeper, mother, and devoted advocate for heart-centered living. Molly sees herself as a mediator in unleashing the healing power already present within the body. She is deeply passionate about philanthropy, community building, and supporting people in living radically aligned lives. Today, she's living her dream in Hawaii, raising wild babies with her husband while continuing to serve families through her offerings and commitment to nurturing vibrant, connected communities. Together, these two women bring a powerful blend of clinical knowledge, embodied wisdom, and deep reverence for the body's design. And I am so excited to share this conversation with you. Let's dive in. Okay, we have the lovely Molly and Michale with us today, all the way from Hawaii, from the vessel. And we have been planning this and rescheduling for several months. So I'm so happy that we finally made it happen. And in true Rewire for Birth style, one of the reasons we've rescheduled is because Molly invited her second child, but her first baby girl, into the world. So we're going to hear a little bit about that. But I just want to say welcome to the podcast. I'm so lucky and grateful that you are here today.
We're excited to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Molly, just because I mentioned why we rescheduled, would you like to take us down a little bit of the path of welcoming you could start with your first as well, but I'm definitely giving you space to let us know how that experience was of welcoming your children into the world.
Cool. Yeah. You know, what's so funny is the first birth that we had has actually been, it was a catapult sort of into this world of village and this word even. This is kind of some of the origins of Michale and I's work together online and in the Vessel Village was birthed out of my son's birth in 2023. We had intentionally done an unassisted birth, and we were just going to have a birth keeper here on island who was in our network, an elder birth keeper in our network, come and support us, my husband and I, and do that kind of thing, a little bit more sovereign, a little bit, out of the medical paradigm. And the day that my water broke, actually, I had intentionally not done my dating so that I wasn't worried or fixed on a specific date. And the moment my water broke, I woke up, walked out to the kitchen, and my water broke, and my husband and I were like, yes, it's happening. And I go to check my phone and like, message my birth keeper, and I'm like, hey, I was going to tell her I had a message from her saying she wasn't feeling well and that if anything was going on in the next week or so, she would be out for that week. And I was like, all right, babe, like,
Here we
let's go. Here we
go.
go. We're going to do this on our own, question mark. We were just like, all right, we were just so excited. And so, you know how labor goes the first time around. My experience was we went to Whole Foods, we went to the river, we did a hike, I was contracting, and just like I wanted it to be a lot of daily life in that first little bit. And then a few hours passed. There were sensations that I was not able to move through without a little support. And I'm like, all right, I think we're like really gonna do this. I'm gonna have my baby by the next morning and we're just gonna wake up and, the baby's gonna be coming out. And I was still so romanticized about it. Even though I have previously had quite a bit of birth experience, I've been to like a lot of births. I worked with as a midwife assistant whenever I was in chiropractic school. And so when I came here, I was attending births as well. So I had an idea or just like a somewhat of like a peek into what birth is like for the first time mom. But still in your own experience, and you're just like, this is what I want. This is my outcome, right? This is the romanticized version of it. And so anyways, a lot of time passes. A lot of time in my point of view. It was like 20 hours or so later. I got to the point where I was like, all right, what the heck is happening? Where is my baby? The sun was coming up, and in Hawaii, roosters crow in the morning time. So it's nighttime, and at about 4 a.m., the roosters started crowing, and I was like, WTF? Like, what is going on? I'm at my limit, and my husband and I are just like, laboring, and he's been sleeping, and I'm like waking him up. I'm like, where is my baby? Where is my baby? The roosters are crowing.
We knew things were going on because you'd seen Corey and Kyle at Whole Foods.
Oh my gosh, yes. And so this is actually part of the village model. It's so funny because we go to Whole Foods right after my water broke to just, get the final groceries or whatever we needed to do. And I stayed in the truck. Out comes one of our good friends' husbands and his kids. And he's like, so I heard,
what's up?
yeah, hey, what's up? So I heard things are happening. And I'm in the truck, I'm like, and he's like, you're looking great. And I'm like, I'm doing it. And it's still at the beginning of labor where you're just like, as a first time mom, you're a little dramatic. You're like, oh, this is a lot. Like, I'm doing this. And it's just nothing in comparison to what it's like at the end. But, I was doing my thing, and Kyle had seen us. So everybody in our village, our tight crew, knew what was happening. So around 7 a.m., 7 or 8 a.m., my husband sent a message to
the group chat
and was like,
the group chat.
Yeah, that one.
The one that you don't ever, nobody ever wants anybody to see.
No.
That one.
So he sends a message, and it was a little bit of a white flag waving at the moment. I was like, I don't know what I need. I just need something. I need support.
Sam messaged and said, hey, would you guys like to come by and bring some coffee?
Yeah. So that was our lack of communication in the moment. I was like, I don't know what I need. And he was like, you should just bring some coffee over. My wife's at the end of her limit in labor. Anyways.
So the back chat is, she doesn't want coffee.
She doesn't want coffee.
Said about coffee. What are we going to do?
What are we going to show up to?
Yeah, what is this?
So Michelle and our other friend Corey had come by, and
so I messaged her and I said, we're only coming if we have absolute consent. Like, you have to ask her, do you want them to come? That's the only way we'll go.
Mm-hmm.
So I said you have to ask it like this, and then tell me exactly what she says. Because we're not going over if it's, no. This is consent, right? I'm talking about that deep level consent, right? And so the last thing we're going to do is violate that. And so then we got the response, the consenting response. And then Corey and I call it jumped in the broom. We jumped in my car and we flew over.
Yeah.
And then we walk in at about 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock or so. And Michelle's the first experience that I had with Michelle walking in.
You're laying across the foot of the bed.
Yeah. Michelle sits down at the foot of the bed and starts rubbing my hair, like just putting her hands through my hair and being like, what's up? What do you need?
What are we going to do?
Yeah, what are we going to do right now?
What are we doing here?
And of course, like, the floodgates in my whole body opened. I feel like fluid was coming out of everywhere. Like, my eyes, I'm like snotting and, birth fluid. And I'm like, I just needed to like let go and like be in the field of someone. Michelle's had 5 live births.
Yeah, eight pregnancies.
And so,
Oh,
and
wow.
and another part of this is like in my pregnancy period, something that I was playing with, thinking about, feeling into was my lineage and my hereditary, the births that had been passed down to me. And I was just talking to her about that and mentioning that I don't feel previously, I didn't feel like I had a lot of empowered birth stories to pull from in my mother line. And like none of the ones that I've heard from my aunts or my grandma are ones that I want to take into this birth and really sit at the feet of, right? I wanted to transform and really.
You didn't have an anchor for it.
Didn't have the anchor for the type of birth that I wanted. And Michelle was like, "Well, I have great birth experiences.
Use mine.
Use my experiences." So that was, that was going on in the background. So then she's sitting at the foot of the bed with me, and I'm like, "Oh my God, yes! I just needed to be in your field. I just needed to have someone there that knows and trusts the birth process, and has an anchor for the type of birth that I was desiring." And so from that moment on, she got me up. We got moving. She's like, "This is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to move your baby. This is how you're going to move your body. This is how you're going to bring your child into the world. And we're going to do this. We're not going to lay around anymore. We're going to get up and like, let's be active in this process."
Salt, minerals, hydrate,
and
pee.
Then they knew, they knew
the
practicals. And there was such clear energetic of her field giving me permission to go do and have the birth that I wanted. And so my baby boy, our first boy came
2:30.
Yeah, 4 or 5 hours after they got there. And yeah, it was such a internal emotional process for me. I call it, I was going through the emotional ladder, the whole thing. I was like, I don't want to fail. I don't want to, and all of the deep, dark stuff that was kind of coming up. And they were like, "We're going to hold you in your joy. We're going to hold you in your ecstasy. We're going to hold you in this success, the thing that you've been wanting and calling and praying for. We're going to hold you there. You can go all the way down, but we're going to bring you back up." And so it was a little bit of that process and moving my physical body around to be able to create the space for him to descend. And then he emerged, his head came out, and I was like, "Okay, everybody's hands, everybody back up. Like, I know what I need now. I know I got this." And his head came out, and it was 2 minutes actually. His head was out, and we were waiting. And something my midwife mentor had mentioned, oh, it was like 3 or 4 years ago before his birth. But she had said, the moment that the head is out, you never want to push, you never want to do anything. You want to wait, because in that moment, you're going to receive everything you need to know about parenting that child. And so I'm like, like obviously you're the most expanding. You're in between two worlds in that moment. But I was like, I'm waiting. Just there was silence in the room. You could probably cut the tension with a knife. It was so silent. It was such an impactful moment for me. And then he came and we celebrated.
Yeah.
And it was the village cleanup and the village like love and the village support. And from that moment, I recognized, and I think you guys did too, I'll speak for y'all a little bit. We just recognized the impact that can be made in someone's life having been around people that truly deeply know them.
Yeah.
So like they walk in and they're a part of my village before this, and they know what I like to eat. They know what I like, how I like to nourish my body. They know what I like, how I like my adrenal cocktail. So specific. They know so much about me because we've done life together, that it was this innate outpouring, overflow, heart-filled service. And yeah, it just radically changed my view of birth. It radically changed my view of being in community and being in village. And it was sort of the birth of the village, the Vessel Village.
Yeah. I think there were probably 4 pivotal moments. There was the one prenatally where I surrogated. I said, I'll be your birth experience surrogate, right? You can surrogate my experiences as your anchors. Use them, right? And because if we don't have positive experiences in our life, how do we know like what to assume and create from? Give us that. It's hard to, you can do it, but it's more challenging if you have to look at something and say, that's what I don't want. But if you see something and you're feeling like, oh, I do want that, I can have that, then you can go toward that much easier, right? So there's that. Then there was the moment I walked in where you were at, you could have circled the drain at that moment. She could have like, she was like about to start circling the drain. And I'm like, oh, actually not, because I know you and I know this is not what you actually want to do. So I'm going to hold you to the standard that I know that you live at, right now, and you're going to borrow me, and you can use me as a ladder, climb it, right? Let's go. And then there was the moment where things were kind of stalling out and getting wonky, and so Corey and I kind of did the coach meeting at first base, and we're like, okay, we're like, okay, we're baseballing now, and we're like, okay, I think what's going on is that this is kind of an emotional thing, and she's what needs to happen here. And so what we agreed on was that she needed to go into the position of her body that was the most uncomfortable for her. Because I'm a nurse, I know some about birth. I've done a lot of birth, blah blah blah, and I'm like, she's fine. It's just this is something else. And so we had you get into this very open, like kind of semi-reclined position. So what's the most uncomfortable position you can find? And she found it. And I'm like,
I knew exactly what it was.
and I'm
the
like,
moment they said it.
yeah. And so we supported her into this position, and I'm like, okay, now go deeper. And then at that moment, everything shifted, and she was engaged and da 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 da, and then she was able to get up and move around.
And I think it was only 2 contractions after that. My contractions were both births were really spaced apart, but 2 contractions after he crowned.
Right.
After
It was
I had found, quote unquote, that position.
And I think it was just about transition, and because
I was avoiding
you're avoiding the transition. And so, and then there was the moment where the head emerged. So I think those 4 things were just like these kingpin of moments where we're like, oh, they were pivotal. Totally. Those pivotal moments,
And a lot of the lessons and learnings I brought into our second birth that just happened in October. And some of the biggest pillars of that were, I wanted to create another village birth, but I wanted to create it intentionally. I didn't want to have to go to the end of my rope and then call my village, be in that dramatic. I didn't want to create the drama and then have to call them in. I wanted to intentionally give everybody a job and invite them into the space and place that I
so it's a different level of autonomy for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was more directive. It was less of that like victim and then I'm going to call my people in. And something that also specifically stuck out to me in the second birth was the talking about moving towards discomfort. I was like, okay, how can I reframe that? I actually want to move towards the positions and places that feel the most productive. So I switched some of the words around and I like did the brain change stuff with it. And when I was in those places, because it was just me and my husband for the second birth, Michelle came when she woke up at 5 a.m. She came on down on her broom.
Down the broom.
And it was just my husband and I. And he was sleeping for the most part. Our 2-year-old was asleep the whole time. And the thing that I got to was the place that I knew was the most productive. I went so deep into that sensation. The sensation started to transmute. And it was almost like this, like, I want to say like this endorphin switch in my brain. It almost started to feel good. Like you were literally like, oh, it's actually opening and feeling good. And then by that time, the sensation, the wave is already, passed on and you're in that void and that liminal space in between. And so there were so many lessons from the first birth that I took into this, but those are the 2 that stuck out for the second birth. It was a wild ride for the second birth as well, but it was so much more directive and I was challenged. Because I said that I wanted to be directive. And so, God brings you what you want. And so I had all the opportunity to direct.
How much?
Yeah. Exactly. I had all the
really? Is that what you want? Okay. Let's
test it. And so, but we stayed in that. I stayed in that true like role. I wavered some here and there, but every time I would come back to that place and I would decide again. My outcome it didn't show up the way that I wanted it. Okay, I'm going to decide again what I want. I'm going to decide again. Okay, this is throwing me off. Oh, I get to decide again. And then coming back to that place over and over.
Yeah.
Wow. So beautiful. And what's sticking out to me is like when you're intentionally creating the village, even before you're welcoming children into the world yourself, you have people in your village who have experienced it. And who genuinely care about you and your experience and are more than willing to let you borrow them in some way, right? Like borrow their nervous system, borrow their blueprint, borrow their stories so that you have this anchor. And that's such a beautiful thing and is often missing in the birth spaces that we create. Yeah.
Yeah. The last thing I'm going to do is show up and commiserate with her. Because I know her standards for her life. And so in that moment where she's going into the void, she's in the portal, she's tripping, I'm going to still hold that standard around her
Mm.
and allow her to feel those edges through my body and my presence, right? I'm not going to collapse into her. I'm going to hold the space so she can continue to feel those edges of herself, even though she's out of her mind, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is such a gift too. Something we talk about in the Vessel Village is the all of the archetypal places and stages of the woman and how they all fit into the village, right? So
Yeah.
for in our experience, in my experience with both births, I had a woman who had showed up for me, who I had also been showing up for outside of the birth experience, right? There was the energy exchanging, and when it came to the birth, I had a woman who had already gone through 5 births, who already had, you have years of wisdom in different clinical settings. She has birth experiences that I wanted to anchor from instead of maybe the alternate reality could have been me calling in a friend who had never had a baby, or me calling in a friend who had just had one baby but had a different birth experience than the one
Yeah.
that I wanted to have. And so blessed to have this, obviously blessed to have this experience, and it's something that I wanted and I created because I value the life stages within the village model. I value the matriarchal wisdom, and
Mm.
the crone wisdom. Like that's a true value for me. And so
And I think, as we were talking a little bit about before we got started, was the healing of the matrilineal line doesn't have to happen through your own biology. It doesn't have to happen through your mother, right? Your biological mother. It can happen through the mother.
yeah,
It doesn't have to be your mother.
the proverbial mother.
Right. And a lot of times it's not going to happen through your mother. It's going to happen through mothering and other mothers.
Mm-hmm.
And selection of that is critical because that's
Mm.
healing work. That heals both ways. It heals the children you had, and it heals the back line too, the lineage line. So you heal in both directions when you do that, because now you're not bringing someone else's stuff to the idea of mother. It's an elevated experience now.
A chosen
It's a
experience.
chosen experience. It's a designed, it's created experience.
Mm-hmm.
Co-created.
Mm.
That's what dyadic means. It means two creating together, co-created. That's what dyad means, is the two create together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, tell me more, because what I'm hearing is by connecting, it doesn't have to be your own biological mother, but by just connecting with mothers, by connecting with yourself as a mother and what it means to be a mother, and also connecting to Mother Nature. Am
Yeah.
I getting it right? And I'll have to agree because I lost my mother 3 years ago, and I've been on this incredible healing journey since. And I feel that the way that I'm mothering, the way that I am connecting to other mothers, the way that I have been resourced by just nature and have been able to connect to nature and connect to my mother who has now crossed over into another space through nature has been incredibly healing for me. And on some weird level, I know that it has healed her. And for sure, I know it is healing what my daughters are going to experience when they become mothers.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely it has. Yeah, nature's our model. And it's the blueprint, the imprint. It's the way that things work right now on the planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
so anchoring into all of that, even if it's not your specific biology, is very beneficial.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go to with it is as you're speaking to Mother Nature, the one thing we always talk about this, the one thing that's passed down through the woman, not the only thing, but the one of the most important factors is the mitochondrial DNA, right?
Mm.
Women, the mothers, the
Maternal mitochondrial DNA.
maternal mitochondrial DNA. And so as you connect to Mother Nature, that literally changes your mitochondria. It changes the genetic makeup of your mitochondria. The more plugged in, the
Mm.
more resourced you are from the ground, from the sun, from the land, from the ocean, from the river, etc. Mother Nature is literally nourishing you through that. And that's what you get to pass on to your children. And that's what your daughters are going to pass on to their children, right? And so
Mm.
there's so much nourishment going on when you're just talking about Mother Nature and you're connecting to it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And there is this sense of just abundance when you connect to nature. Like there is, even if you find a small little oasis, like my small little oasis is this little lake nearby that I go to almost every day. And when it's, really snowy and really cold where I am on in the earth, it's if I just touch a tree for
Yeah.
like 5 minutes, my whole day shifts in a good way. But if I miss that, I notice, the rest of my day when I'm trying to do work, I'm on my laptop, I'm at home, like it just, um, it moves in a direction that is less nourishing, let's say, than just that 5 minutes of connecting to a tree or whatever it might be. So I think what I want anyone listening to receive from this is in any small way that you can connect to nature, even if you're, a 9 to 5 person who works in an office building, even having a small plant on your desk or whatever can really make a big difference. And I remember when I was pregnant, I would go for walks, ideally somewhere where there's a lot of nature around, and just connecting to the fact that, like, that in me is what I'm seeing outside, like the abundance, the nourishment, the connection to the earth. Like I am a goddamn goddess in this body, creating earth, like creating life. I mean, it just connecting gives you that ability to go into a different field energetically, let's say. And you were talking a lot about the field that Michelle brought to your birth experience. I want to unpack that a little bit because maybe some of the terminology won't be as familiar for some of the listeners. But we have definitely talked on the podcast about how important the people you choose to bring into your birth experience is, because of what they bring with them. The energy that they bring with them can really impact you. And so, if you're okay with it, just to kind of unpack what that means, like being in someone's field or and that kind of stuff.
Ooh, this is timely. Yeah,
Okay.
we've been talking a lot about the fields of people that, right? There's that, what is that age-old saying? The 5 people you surround yourself with, you become the most like. There's a quantum biologic reason that that happens. And if you're thinking about matter in general, right? Matter is just a vibration of cells. They're oscillating at different frequencies, right? So everything in our world is always constantly moving. And if we think about us as energetic beings, we have a certain frequency. We put out a certain, we emit a certain vibration. All of us do. And you have emotions that are attached to that. You have previous life experiences that are attached to that. You have your ability to like be resourced that's attached to that, like have enough energy in your system to maintain a certain vicinity of a morphogenetic field. And everyone's continually always interacting with other fields of vibration, right? So that's just kind of like a rundown of what's going on biologically from a cellular level. And so we all have morphogenetic fields.
Yep. And that's well documented in empirical research. It's actually in white paper. I know biofield researchers, and this is their life, is quantifying and empiricizing
testing
these concepts. Yeah.
And so if I believe that, right, if I take on that belief, then in birth, for me specifically, my value system was like, whoa, this is this is going to be a life altering event. This is going to be a life changing event for me and for my children that come through. I want the field to be what I want it to be. I don't want to, falter to, some type of situation. And for me, it was like, okay, the hospital and that field, I don't know what's being emitted there. I want to protect my space in a way that I can pick and choose who's going to be in my field, who's not. And we do that unconsciously. We also do that consciously. I wanted to do that consciously. And I did it a little unconsciously in my first birth. And my husband was kind of that protector, and he kind of brought in that role. He's like, no, I know who you want here. I'm not going to call anybody else. I know exactly who you want. I know what you want in your field. And I know who the people are that you've surrounded yourself with previously. So I'm going to call them. And so if we're talking about morphogenetic fields, your interaction with another human, and this is actually what we talk about a lot in the Vessel Village, because the premise of our community that we've created now is our vision is to see wealthy, healthy, vital villages pop up around the world. And so we're helping women in person. So we're helping women come into their full uniqueness, their full selves, and in their authentic gifts of what they're here to serve and how they're here to serve and give to the world, and bring that to their in-person village so that it can build in a really potent and magnetic way, right? And so if I'm in person with Michelle right now, our fields are meshing. Like we're creating, she was just talking about the consciousness. Like we're creating an entirely different field, right? Just being in person with each other. And so that to me was, it was a high value. It was a very high value in both births. And I'm learning more about my second birth and different people that I interacted with, quote unquote, unconsciously. And I also chose that to have lessons so that I am able to be the director that I said I wanted to be. You know what I mean? Like God was like, "Yep, you said you wanted that. So let's test you here." And I got to have experiences with different people coming in and out of my field there. And I'm still having experiences with that, and that's how I'm learning and growing and being more conscious of who's in our field. And so interesting because even when my daughter, she's a little Scorpio sun, and she came into the world completely different than my son did, and very, like, if you think about just like the water kind of archetype, like it was all like deep dark, you know, I was just on in the night on my bathroom floor, just me just getting in it. And I was like going in and out of, I would say, in and out of consciousness. I was pretty deep in my, you know, meditative state. I was asleep at some points in between the pushing contractions, and there was somebody, we took her the first time we went out. I was like, I want to go to my favorite coffee shop and I just want to get a coffee. And so it was like 3 weeks. My
She
husband,
did want coffee.
I did. I wanted it. I was like, this is my drink. I want to go get my drink. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody has their thing. And I was like, I want my drink. And my husband, so we just got in the car, and my husband got her out of the car seat, brought her in, and I stayed in the car with my son, and they got my drink. And an older woman who I'm guessing the way my husband described her was a little eccentric and kind of like, you know, kind of like looking crazy and whatever, but comes up to them. She like beelines. She sees my husband come into the coffee shop with my daughter, 3 weeks old.
It's the crazy one.
It's the crazy one, you know? And
Yeah.
she beelines to him. And he's like, it was almost like he like put out a fishing net and like brought her to him.
Whoa.
And she came up to him and was like, "What a beautiful daughter you have." And he was like, "Thank you. Like we're so in love with her." And she was like, "The one thing that I'm being told to tell you right now is watch out who's in her field. Protect her field." And
Wow.
so from that moment, I'm like, even more so, you know, like who's in our children's field, who's impacting them from an energetic, morphogenetic sense. I feel like it's just, yeah, I feel like it's imperative.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
I'm going to start homeschooling my daughters tomorrow. No, just kidding.
Yeah, it's really about doing what you're doing it the way that you're here to do it, right? So, you know, Molly's talking about the hospital, and I had 5 completely different births, and I had a couple of hospital, actually, one hospital intervened when my final miscarriage happened. I had a D&C, right? So that was in the hospital too, and so, but my, you know, my first 2 were born in the hospital, you know, virtually unassisted. And so the third one, I'm like, no, 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 no. And I like basically created situations where they just left me alone, like forgot about me. Or the second one was like the doctor was busy, so me and the nurse just like dealt with it, you know. Cool. I mean, I can do that. But I'm a very my blueprint, my design in the world is very hardy and sturdy and very provocative and penetrative, right? That's just my makeup. And so, third one I had at home, and then fourth one had at a midwife's house. The fifth one we broke into a hospital to you know, I
Because
mean,
of midwife laws.
because of midwife laws, you know, it's like you do what you got to do. You know, I'm gangster like that. I will totally like, you know,
Have the birth you want.
I'll have the birth I want. I'm going to do it, you know. So we went up the service elevator, climbed in a bed, had the baby, and then let everybody know, oh, we're here, you know. And so, but that's my style. That's totally me. That would be totally me, you know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we just broke into a hospital, had a baby, and like, we're, yo, here we are. And then my son, you know, the fifth one, he's like, yeah, I've been breaking the law ever since. I'm like, slow down, just relax. Okay. That's, you know,
he's like, you gave me that
he's
birth
24 now. My youngest is 24. My oldest is 33. And so, you know, this was that long ago. I was doing those shenanigans, right? Very, very like not cool with all the proper people of not cool at all, right?
No,
So
no.
anyway,
But yeah, you created the field, the penetrative field
yeah,
formed around you because
yeah,
you knew you had the clarity of what you wanted, what you desired, and
yeah.
how it was going to go down. You just had clarity.
Yeah, but that's also naturally me is I'm always going to find the edge. I'm going to push the edge. I'm going to influence past the edge and bring a you know a bunch of people behind me. And that's a trailblazer kind of like thing. That's my vibe. And so the fun part for me in these births was I'm very much about like mitigating anything in the birth that could be an imprint moving forward. And so doing that through what we call dynamic infant movement and the postural blueprint, and calibrating mom and baby together, like things that may have gotten a little wonky in the cranial base on the way out, we handle that then. We get it out of the way done, and get that mom and babe connected in a postural, a positioned postural way that's functional.
That changes the field.
That changes everything too. So you're not struggling, you're feeding, you're going, And so we've done that. We did that with Corey's birth. We did that with both of your births. And so it's part of the village thing, right?
Yeah. I do, now that we're mentioning breastfeeding, I'd love to talk more about functional breastfeeding. You're mentioning, the posture, anything that might have been a little bit wonky for the baby
Yeah,
during the birth. And I assume for the mother as well. And
absolutely.
yeah, and how you can kind of correct those or create the space so that they can self correct. Can you flesh that out a little bit more so we can understand?
Yeah, so a lot of this focus came from the work that I did years ago, 15 years ago, around craniofacial orthodontics and creating wider palettes for the purpose of, correcting sleep apnea or malocclusion, those kinds of things. So that's an after the fact kind of like version of how people develop, right? And so I began to like reverse engineer that into what's happening during the birth, what's happening right after the birth, how is that baby using the musculature at the breast to create the growth trajectory that automatically dissolves, corrects, and allows for the most craniofacial growth you can get, right? And so when over the years, I began to like work with, and I'll say not perfect, but dial in, synthesize, these things that I saw with, birth, like an occiput posterior presentation, and, like shoulder dystocia, and, sometimes nuchal cord, not always nuchal cord, but sometimes with nuchal cord. And I'm like, oh, there's ways we can actually create fluidity and dynamism. That's what I call it, dynamism in the body right away, and that's coordinated with the mom. And so we realize now that this is actually a prenatal opportunity to create dynamism in the mom. So that's what our program, the Village Birth, focuses on, is actually backing it all the way up to, is like, oh, you want to conceive, okay, here's what we recommend, and the way the mother moves becomes the foundation. Her waveform becomes this foundation for the birth, and then what the baby's able to do, because baby's going to mirror off the mom, and if she's able to, then the baby is more likely able to, and then a facilitator can come in. And I teach practitioners to do this facilitation work. You don't want to interfere, right? So it's not doing to the baby, but it's calibrating the mother and baby together so that their nervous system, their mirror neurons, are actually doing the job, the work. They are doing the imprint. It's not something somebody else does to a baby or a mother, right?
You don't release them or adjust them.
No, it's not like release work modality, which is very famous. And we see this all over the internet with tens of thousands of like views and likes, where a practitioner goes in and does a technique to a baby and then the nervous system changes. My argument with that is that it's really not sustainable, because they're only going to be able to hold what the mother can hold and do. And so when you calibrate that, you create that dyadic consciousness and that co-creative capacity with the mother and the baby, then the mother is actually in her power. She's in control of what's happening with that. She has the awareness, and she's facilitating the baby herself.
And then you have true sustainable change in
You
a
have
growth
true
trajectory.
you have true sustainable change in the growth trajectory.
Wow.
And then once the child, begins to get older, like past 12 months, they're walking, they're in that rapid, 2 to 5 year old, where the craniofacial structures are just exploding with growth, because they're 85% complete by the time they're 8 years old. The cranium's 85% complete. So what happens between 0 and 5 is critical to set the foundation in all kinds of ways for that part, right? And so functional feeding is really about position and posture, and then how the baby suck, swallow, breathe at the breast, and then the effectiveness of their movement in these ways, and their ability to stay open and breathe at the breathe at the same time with their eating. So my experience with like the world of I created the first integrative tongue tie clinic in the United States back 12 years ago, right? And I realized that, 80% of what we're seeing in those problems is actually not related to frenulums. It's related to posture and position and also the health of the fascia. And so all of our programs back up into that. It's like, okay, here's how you create healthy, fluid, mobile fascia. And here's how you create dynamism in your body that fuels into your children. And so now you're on a path that's actually, you're in the driver's seat. You're not having to outsource to other people, go to experts and stuff like that. It's almost like
Mm.
everybody's doing in the birth world right now, where they're like, no, we actually believe in the woman's ability to give birth. Hello, hello, we do, we really do.
We forgot about it for
We
a
forgot
second.
about that for a minute. But what's funny is, like, I think about myself 34 years ago. I had just
You
come out of
believed it.
I just come out of nursing school, 4-year degree, bachelor's degree, and I was trained in a tertiary care center. So I saw everything that could go wrong, that would go wrong. And I came out of there going, absolutely no effing way I'm doing any of that shit. My body can do this, and I read the Bradley method, written in 65 or something. And I'm like, somebody give me something here. And I somehow I found this book, because we didn't have internet, back then. Found this book and I just devoured it. They called it husband coach childbirth, except I did it without my husband there, but cool, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
And it was the
No big
Bradley
deal.
method, right?
Oh,
And
yeah, no big deal. Just like a total badass birther.
Yeah.
like, we got this. Cool. But I had that belief, and I had no foundation for that in my field. I had no
No
one,
matrilineal
nothing.
imprint.
I created that shit out of nothing, like the God self was pumping that day. I'm like, no, sis, we're doing this.
This is how it's gonna go.
This is how it's gonna go down. And it did. And my doctor came in after my first one was born, and he's like, are you a Zen Buddhist? And I'm like, huh? You're like, I was like, I'm sorry, what? And I'm like, no. He's like, you were in a whole like other place. He'd never seen it before. And I'm
Wow.
like, cool.
Do you see that in your oldest? The ability to just like create out of
Oh
nothing?
gosh, yeah, and totally like dialed in, like
So good.
total
Psychic.
focus like that. Yeah, total psychic. But anyway, it's like that belief was there without an anchor. And so what I see now is that, not a lot. I don't know if that's a Gen X thing or what, but I was talking about that this morning with Molly. But I feel like if I can offer something to another woman, is that belief that your body is fully capable, but also to follow your intuition and your internal leadings, because the kind of births I designed, not everybody's up for breaking into a hospital. Cool. And you can create your own way. You already have your own way of doing it. What is that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How can you kind of like uncover that and unlock it and then be brave enough to follow that
Yeah.
path
Step
for
into it.
yourself? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
And in the
Absolutely.
communities that we have and the offerings that we have, this is what we're like the through thread of all of that is coming back to your humanness.
Yeah.
What makes you human? It is the ability to get light in your eyes and light on your skin and get in the salt water or get in the lake and have that osmosis interaction with the nature and have nature fill you up from the inside out so that you can create the life that you want without those basic principles right now. The 3D meat suit, right? The human, the skin, the bones, the fascia, the blood, they need that as sustenance as a stepping stone for the creation of the life that you want. And so we always come back to the resource and we always come back to what's going to make you human. And I think, we're just talking about like the new generations, the Gen X or whatever, we're becoming less human. We're becoming less adapted to interacting with the natural world. We're going digital, we're going virtual. And so we're losing a lot of that creative capacity.
Which is really sad, because the way that you create for yourself is the way you'll go out and create in the world. They're not different. It's just that when you and the allopathic system's done such a great job brainwashing people to believe that they can hurt themselves or hurt their babies or whatever. And to the degree that you believe that, you'll take action accordingly, right? I had no belief in that in me whatsoever. I was like, the hell? No, hell no.
Mhm.
No, not happening. I'm fully capable. And then I went and became into the world fully capable. And everybody went, "Oh, excuse me, wait a minute. We don't do that kind of capability. You have to have a monitor and have it." I was like, "Oh, absolutely fucking not. Not doing it." Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, but that kind of fortitude doesn't exist in everyone. And so people have really been dialed in with the brainwashing of the allopathic system. And we see this in pediatrics too.
Yeah.
You're going to hurt your
Especially
child.
fit.
You're going to hurt yourself. You could hurt your child. And I'm like, are we not biologically designed and capable of
Mhm.
of this whole thing?
Reproductive process.
Apparently not anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we wouldn't be here if we weren't
Thank
capable.
you.
That's what I say.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We
But there
would have been
is,
gone a long time ago.
yeah, but the fear is so strong sometimes, right? And in some cases, especially if someone's been labeled high risk, the fear is just compounded, right? I also see it when there's been trouble conceiving right from the get-go before even there's a lot of fear. And so I'm curious with working with women prenatally, what kind of differences you see from when they first meet you to afterwards, what kinds of births they're experiencing. And I know we can't make massive generalizations, but I'd love to hear a bit of about what you're seeing.
Well, when our in our village birth
space.
force, right? We see this because we see women come in desiring a specific outcome. They go through the movement process that we've laid out. They go through the resourcing process that we've laid out. And then they hear birth stories, right? So Michelle has 5 birth stories. I have 2 birth stories now. And the other woman that we created that with has 3 birth stories. So they're hearing multiple birth stories of where we might have been directive and where we might have been in our less directive selves. And then we have what do you call that? A framework for placing yourself kind of on a scale. And the bridge to go to each, because you've had multiple types of, and Corey too, consciousness levels, maybe you could say, with the births. And then the bridges to get to maybe what you want to achieve or what your next outcome is.
Yeah, I like to frame it up as it's a developmental journey. So birthing is a developmental journey. And depending on how autonomous you are, your mindset, all that, you're actually taking a developmental journey through birth. And so we created 4 birthing archetypes so you could look at yourself within these archetypes and be like, "Oh my gosh, that's me." So how do I flip that into something potent? I didn't like the way I showed up here. If I want to correct that, what do I do to correct that? And people have really responded.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, I see it. I see it. I see it. Okay,
Yeah.
great. I see that this actually helped me create that and I don't want that. So now in my mind, what do I do to create something different? Right? And so they can actually up level themselves developmentally and from a mindset perspective and develop their maturity through their becoming more in their mother, right? As a mother. And that's the journey to the matriarch, right? That's the matriarchal trajectory is when you take that kind of responsibility because not everybody gets to be wise elder. And this is one of the problems we're having right now is women my age, I'm 60. People are looking around and going, "Where are the elders?" And I'm like, "Well, they're on their phones and, they're
in their houses.
And they actually don't really they haven't discovered that thing that they're here to leave behind in their infinity, and they're not reinvesting back into creating more assets, which are the healthiest thriving beings around us that we can create with, right? And so that's our responsibility as elders is to feed that upcoming generation and those lineages, right? So I'm island tutu to these kids. I don't have any of my own grandchildren, and I'm willing to be island tutu to them, right? But that's part of my eldership, matriarchy kind of journey as well. I know that was kind of mixed up, but that's kind of like if you zoom out a little bit, that's kind of where that goes.
And if we come back into birth specifically or the journey from fertility, right, to the conception process or even the birth process, because we see a lot of women in our space that have had a birth that they an outcome in a previous birth that they did not want, quote unquote, did not want, but they created. and they want to choose something else for this one. And in that process, for example, we have one of the birth archetypes is like mismatched shopper, right? And so you go into, and the prime example of this is a woman who goes into a hospital setting, really secretly desires a home birth or some type of natural birthing setting, but they want to utilize the hospital system for whatever reason. Maybe it's their husband is not on board, or maybe it's their mother-in-law has been saying something that is giving them the, oh, I need to appeal to her. But they go into the hospital setting and they expect the nurses or the doctors to get on board with all of their natural birthing practices, the birth plan. And the hospital's like, I have liability, I have procedures, we have all this in place. What are you doing, woman? Why are you coming in here telling me what to do?
The nurses are putting her on the C-section schedule now.
They're
already doing it.
And so, like, that is an example of an archetypal developmental age and stage where, hey, you don't have to go fight the system. You can create exactly what you want. What is your way? You're going to create what you're wanting, instead of going into a system that doesn't have what you want to offer. Michelle says it like going into Target and expecting to find a Birkin bag there.
Not going to happen.
That's not where you shop for a Birkin bag.
Right.
And everybody knows that. Everybody else, except for the delusional.
Most people, except when they're giving birth and they're like, oh, I'll go to a hospital and have a home birth.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So that's the example.
Now, I've done it.
She's done it. But that's
it's possible.
It's creative field.
And I wouldn't count on it.
And you have enough energy. So that's where I come back to. Do you have enough energy and enough fortitude to create the birth outcome that you want? And if you get really honest with yourself, a lot of women do not have that right now.
They don't.
Some women do. Michelle is a great example. I've heard of, we hear of unicorn stories all the time where women's like, well, I had that. I'm like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Good job. Yeah. Great job for creating what you wanted. But that's just not the majority.
It's not the norm.
Yeah. No, especially when, your estrogen is so high, we're more likely to fawn. We're more likely to people please because we're in a vulnerable state, and we actually require the people around us, the village around us, to hold us in that process. We're not supposed to be in a state where you need to tell everyone what to do. And if they do something wrong, you want to put them in their place. Like, it's not the place that you're supposed to be in, right? And so, of course, things can happen physiologically where you might need an intervention to support you.
And the thing I would also like to say is that expert that you think knows more than you, or that provider, they are not your village. They do not know you on a cellular level. They do not know you on a soul level. They do not know you on a social level. They're paid professionals to do what they do. And so I would just leave that with people. It's like, be in your village, be a part of a community and you can speak to that a little bit, but be a part of a group of women or people that are in different life stages than you, that have different gifts than you, that can speak into you, and that you can anchor into the experiences that you're wanting to create with them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I've heard from what you're speaking about, the different life stages, is the maturation process is evident. And, from a personal experience, when my mom passed away, she was definitely the rock. She was the matriarch of the family. And when she passed away, I was like, where are all the elders? Like that question that you were asking, like, am I the most mature out of all these ages? It's disappointing for the people who come after you to feel that sense of lack of maturity in the people who are supposed to hold them through difficult experiences. And so, with that being said, I'd love for you to describe the differences, I guess, between what is a community and what is a village.
Yeah. So you'll hear this a lot, like in online spaces, right? It's like, oh, we have this online community, right? So in community, you have people of they're peers, they're similar ages, similar stages, similar problems or focuses, right? And they all get together and they commiserate about those things, right? That's community. And people come and go from community. People will come in and people will leave. They'll get what they need and then they go, right? In our minds, in our verbiage, village is, if you can imagine, like in like the tribal era, or the, say, Northern European kind of feudal era, where there were groupings of people in the land, and in those groupings of people there would have been, and you could also use the tribal model too, but there were groups of people who had different roles fulfilled. In if it was Northern European, there was a cobbler, there was a forger, there was a stable, there was a horse farrier, there was a doctor or a medicine woman, a medicine man, there was a midwife. There were, you know what I'm saying? There were these people, right, that made things tick. And what happened with civilization and modernity is that became more ubiquitous, or it became more corporatized as well. And so they took those people out of the village. And so when you had village, you had access to these people, and those were the people that served the village, right? Now in the indigenous sense, we had healers, we had medicine women, medicine men, and those people were cared for in the village, and they cared for the other people, right? And so that was their job. They had special wisdom, they had special information from their lineage, they were trained, they were, it's not because it was necessarily that exclusive, but it was just kept, right? It was kept with that person. And the other thing is, like, when you have healer, and you have like healing, if you think about healing models too, like the more allopathic system that we have today versus, like, say, in the roots of shamanism in Russia, and also the medicine women and medicine men of the indigenous North Americans. The differences there is that they're very similar, actually, except the allopathic model, the professional takes apart the patient. So they cut and do to the patient. Whereas in the older models, say in a medicine woman or medicine man would actually disembody to help the person. They left them whole, and they did retrieval around them to bring the parts and pieces back to them. It's a big difference, right, in the philosophy there. And so in the village, I look at it as, everybody's village is going to look a little different, right? And depending on what resources you have, the maturity level of your village, but there's going to be different roles that are played. Molly and Corey call me the mob wife, but I play the elder, and but my flavor is more mob wife. It's like,
if you need something to get done,
boom.
talk to
If
her.
you need something to stop,
She knows a guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I know a guy.
She has access to things that you don't have access to. So you go to
Basically, yeah. And so the other thing is, like, if something needs to stop, it stops here and it stops now. I'm that wall. I'm like, absolutely not. No.
Yes.
And then that's listened to, because
Respected.
they know, in a moment, whatever it takes, right? And so that's my role in the village, right? And so I do that with whether I'm caring for people or the land or anything, but that's how I love. That's the way I love, right? Because it always comes back to love. And so in villages, we talk about, like, what's your role in the village? Don't mimic, don't imitate. Who are you, and what's your level of maturity, and what's your growth trajectory, and what is your purpose here on the planet? Who are you? Where are you? And then what do you have to offer in that space? Because a lot of times we see this online all the time. People are mimicking or impersonating other people, which is actually, you're not respecting yourself because you're not doing your work in the world. We don't need another so and so. We need you to show up as you, with your gifts being you, because that's how we're all going to move forward, right?
Absolutely.
We can't do it without it.
Yeah. And so as you're speaking, the image of just this like ecosystem is coming up, and how it's more collaborative versus, something that might just be almost like a consumer, right? Like, I go here to get this. I go to the doctor to get this medication. I go here to get what I need here. And so there's less of
Yeah, but the difference here is that we know each other. There's a knowing there, right? And
Yeah, on
so
a deep level.
when something's off, right?
And also, you know each other and you need each other.
Right.
There's a need component too, obviously professionals need clients to continue their role as well, but it's way more fragmented. In an ecosystem, it's all beneficial.
Right.
Everybody's moving towards, towards each other and away from each other in a way that's balanced and brings equilibrium to the whole.
Also, like living on an island, relatively small island, actually magnifies that whole model, because if I don't have it, somebody in my village does. And even if it's a skill, it's like, okay, the ships stop coming and the food stops arriving, right? Now we're on the land. Who's got land? Who's growing something? Who knows how to shoot? Who knows how to process, cure,
Yeah.
whatever. It's like that's when it gets real, and it's gotten
Mhm.
real.
And yeah, especially since 2020.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
gets real.
People, like people have that more of awareness of
Right.
what is it going to be? What might happen?
Right.
Who are my
Mhm.
people?
Yeah. There's a storm coming. Actually, we had a
Just
storm
that.
last week. Storm coming. It's storm season, and so if I'm not here, then somebody's like, "Hey, is your house okay? Can I go over and check your windows? I'm going to go check your da 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 da," because they know me and my house, right? And so,
Mhm.
and that's not my family. That's my village, right? So my village can come into my house and check my house, or they could come get what they need if they needed something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so beautiful. And it's also this level of resilience that we don't fully understand in the West. Like we think resilience is just like how many times can life knock you down and you can get back up on your own? Oh my gosh, and we just like praise it, right? But resilience is really, how connected are you to the people around you and how can you resource each other?
I like that.
Yeah, very much
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, and it's reminding me of something you talk about a lot, which is this nervous system wealth, right? So shifting wealth from the idea that we typically think it is to this level of connection that you have to yourself, to your lineage, to the people around you, to the earth.
This is something we talk about all the time when we're considering what is, we say our vision is wealthy, healthy, vital in-person villages, right? And people are like, oh, wealthy. It's like, yes, wealthy in provision, right? What does provision mean? We were just talking about this actually, about like breadwinning and what does that mean? It's actually to like secure your safety and secure your ability to be alive. Win the bread.
Hmm.
What does that
Mm.
mean? And then Michelle was like, it's provision. It's the pro and then vision
Yeah,
for the future. Can you see
Mm.
what is for your future? And that's not always fiat currency.
right.
Very rarely, honestly, is it fiat currency. It's what you do with fiat currency, obviously, but there are, what you were saying, there are all these other ways of wealth within what we would call an ecosystem or a village that can come up, and it looks like provision. It looks like what Michelle was saying. Somebody's going to come and make sure her house is secure. Somebody's going to come and take down her Christmas tree. Somebody's going to come and trim and take out the weeds in her yard or whatever that looks like.
Stack wood.
Stack wood, right? That's provision. That's wealth because she has.
Not because I can't, but because there's a relationship there of service and love and care, and I can go do something else if I don't have to do that, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So provision in many ways.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
it's
think
also taking care of your energy, like your own capacity. Like, where are you able to pour out in a way that is most nourishing to your village?
that
But also not in a way that depletes you, right? Like, maybe you're not the best at chopping wood and
right.
bringing it to your neighbors, but you're amazing at offering something else.
Exactly. Exactly. It's about using those gifts, the gifts that you have in places where it benefits, the group. And you'll really never hear us talk about the nervous system out of context. I don't decontextualize really anything. And so a wealthy nervous system is an ecological product of the environment and the organism together. And it's a signal. It when it's on track, then you know that your environment and organism are in homeostatic balance. And also, most of the time, that person is taking radical responsibility for what they have responsibility for. So I think I recorded a reel yesterday about how I'm building assets as a 60-year-old woman. And so, yeah, finances are important. My real assets are bone, muscle, and mitochondria.
Mm-hmm.
That's my responsibility. No one else can come and do that for me. And so if I'm not doing that, then I'm actually not serving my village. I
Mhm.
put undue burden on my village if I don't tend to that, my fire, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my responsibility.
I love that. Yeah.
And
And
the
it
result is a stable nervous system that's dynamic
Mhm.
Adaptable
and
and responds
adaptable.
accordingly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we often take the environment out of the nervous system conversation,
Oh,
right?
huge.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
And
it
it's a
reminds
little
me,
it's a little unfair. Yeah.
I think so. I think you're right. It places maybe pressure on the individual, right? Without taking into consideration who's around them, what's around them, what their lifestyle is like. And it does, as you're saying, radical responsibility. It's reminding me of the birth process itself, because I always remind people like your OB is not going to birth your baby for you. Your midwife is not going to birth your baby. Your doula, your birth keeper, no one is going to do this except for you. So taking that ownership and resourcing yourself appropriately.
Now your doctor
This,
can deliver it for you. I'm just saying,
true,
it could
true.
happen. But is that what you really
Is that what you
want? I don't
want?
know. You're
Yeah.
gonna have to answer that question on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that is a good point. It does happen that way at times. And maybe in certain circumstances, that is the best
Sure.
way. But yeah, taking that responsibility back, I think, is helpful because then it can support women and families in preparing for this experience appropriately instead of just outsourcing that power and that responsibility to their healthcare providers. This conversation has gone so much bigger than I expected, to be honest. And like what a beautiful gift it is. And as I wrap up, I always preface my last question by saying there is a profound imprint that takes place when a new life is entering this reality. And you've alluded to this imprint, the blueprints that take place through our fascia, our mitochondria, and so many levels, and the mirror neurons that you brought up as well. But this imprint can be one of love and safety and trust, which are all signatures of oxytocin, like this big welcome party for this new life that has just arrived. And unfortunately, sometimes that's an imprint of mistrust. It's an imprint of protection mode, of survival mode, of fear for whatever reason. And that's okay. It's not permanent. We can always do things to repair. But why repair when we can prepare for this experience?
Totally.
And when enough families are supported in this way, we have a whole generation that is going to be moving through the world from a place of love and safety and trust, which I think would result in a very different world than the one that we're looking at currently. So that's all my way of asking you, what would you like to imprint onto the ears of the listeners? It's a lot of moms and families preparing for birth, it's a lot of women in the postpartum period. It's also women who want to birth something beautiful into the world from that womb space, creative life force energy. What would you like to imprint onto their ears?
I would say you know that you know, and that your knowing is the most important thing. And so even if you haven't had an experience like that, doesn't mean you can't create it. You can create what you want and what you know you're here to create. And so I would leave people with that. Yeah.
You know that you know, and connect to that knowing. Yeah.
The last thing too, Michelle, this is a Michelleism, something that she says a lot. And she says, if someone comes to us and says, well, I don't know. And she says, okay, well, if you did know, what would you do? And almost every time, the first thing that comes to your mind is the thing that you needed to do or the thing that you needed to put into place so you can create what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know right now, ask yourself, if I did know, what would I do?
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Just a little way to get past that block, right?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
block.
At least you can see what's in the way at that point.
Yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
you can move it if you want to.
I'm going to use that on myself and also my daughters when I hear I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
we hear it a lot. We hear it a lot in our spaces too. The women are like, "Well, I'm not really sure," and we're like, "Okay."
Well, but you think about it, like you ask a little kid what they want, they know what they want.
Yeah.
So at
Oh,
some
yeah.
point, you lost the permission to say what you want.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's finding that permission again to say what you want or to do what you want in the face of whatever around you. I don't know where that came from in me. I just do, and I give women permission all the time. Say the weird thing, do the weird thing, do the thing that makes you happy, just, you'll actually find your people when you do that. You'll find your village when you do that. And most people are like, oh, well, there's nobody like me. I'm like, it's not about finding somebody that's like you. It's about finding somebody that can actually help you and facilitate you in getting what you want and why you're here. And I think people
Mm.
forget that. It's like what you want is important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And that co creative energy just will find ways to bring people to you that you need to meet on your journey. Yeah.
But if
Absolutely.
you're not being pure and honest and real about what that is, it can't find you.
Mm. True. True. Yeah. Well, I'm glad we somehow found each other. This was so beautiful. If people are curious and they want to connect with you either in person or virtually, how can they do that?
Yeah, so we have our next Vessel Village. It's the virtual community. We have the next enrollment for that happening January 30th. And so that'll be open for 1 month. We open those 3 times a year, 2 to 3 times a year, the enrollment periods. And that would be the place that we would invite you to come and learn more about yourself and the way that you are designed to create in the world. Like I said, our vision is for the wealthy, healthy, vital villages to be popping up in person all over the world. And so that's what we're doing there, is building women to be the anchors for their village.
I like to see people, like all people, women especially, get what they want and say what they want and get what they want. And so that's what I like. So yeah, the Vessel Village. We're on Instagram.
Yeah, on Instagram. Michelle has her own offerings. You have True North.
Woman, True North Man, True North Couples Creation Container. I like to help couples create their family empires and build wealth and create the lives they love. So that's part of my work. And then also Postural Blueprint Method, which is helping practitioners actually learn to honor themselves and also work in the co-facilitated space of honoring the dyad. So there's even postpartum, there's still way too much outsourcing and intervention going on there with infants. And so that's kind of my thing right now, is to help practitioners and facilitators facilitate the dyad instead of facilitate the modality. And so that's Postural Blueprint Method.
And then lastly, together we've created with another woman, we've created the Village Birth, which we touched on here with the birth archetypes and the resourcing and the movement. And you can find that at it's CoriMolloy.com/thevillage-birth.
Yep.
Online.
Okay. Beautiful. I'm going to put that in the show notes so that everyone can access them easily. Thank you so much for I want to say just the commitment that you both are portraying to the vision that you both have and how deep you are willing to go. You guys are not staying up here, like down here. You're not staying the superficial level. You guys are going
I would say
exactly.
we're like, I'll put myself in the test tube first. Let me put
Yeah.
myself in the blender and
100%.
see what comes out. You know, it's
That's
like
my whole life. Right.
Yeah.
that's what, unfortunately and fortunately, that's what we do.
I mean, I've come
Yes.
back from 4 near-death experiences and had, 8 pregnancies and 5 live births. I mean, I've got a lot to share here. So, and I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. And I really hope that women, that families connect with you and receive what they need on this life path. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Rewire for Birth. We hope you found our discussion inspiring and empowering. If you enjoyed the episode, we would greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help us reach more listeners and spread the message of holistic, empowered birth experiences. Feel free to mention what you loved about today's episode and how it helped you feel more prepared and confident about your birthing journey. Your feedback not only encourages us, but it helps other moms-to-be find our podcast and join this incredible community. Together, we can make a positive change in the world of birth. Until next time, stay empowered and keep rewiring for birth.